Welcome back to another episode of Man vs. Marriage. It's me, Quincy W. Moran, a.k.a. the Q-Dog. In the studio with Coach Rita.
Hello.
In the studio with producer Ashley. Hey, y'all. What's up? Whoa! I did that voice for her.
Good. That was a good...
I know. That was a terrible example of how she talks.
Because she doesn't talk like that.
That's right. But it was funny because you're laughing.
Yes, it is true.
And then my wife in the studio again, which is going to be more of a normal thing because if there is any credence or credibility that needs to be given so that I remain authentic, she can give that to you. She is my BS meter. How about that?
You need one?
Well, people may not know me very well out there. Everybody at this table, has a decent understanding of who I am, but sometimes it helps that, you're not just blowing smoke. If your wife can give credence or credibility to what you say, then you have arrived.
That's gold.
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
So our last episode was great. I thought it really helped me just in the moment to understand a little bit better, and even after 19 years and, 5 years of developing our marriage, I'm still obviously learning things about her and about our marriage that are like what you call these aha moments.
Mm-hmm.
But, rewriting the script, it's special to me because it's what has redefined the course of my life. And knowing that I have the ability to influence that heavily, and life doesn't just happen to me, that I can actually take charge of my life and life is happening for me. It's just a mindset that'll give you freedom to really become that best version of yourself. So one thing I want to say that I'm just thinking about now here in the moment. Recently, somebody came to me that is listening to the podcast, and he was like, hey, I let my sister listen to the podcast while we were in the car together, and she's like, well, who is this guy? And so he told her a little bit about me and our situation, and, obviously this is the podcast. And then he said, my sister's married, and they're about to have their first child. I would love to have you send her a quick 30-second, 1-minute video and give her some advice about parenting. And I was like, okay. Wow. So I determined the best advice I could give in a 1-minute video is to be intentional about your marriage. And remember that you're married because everything's going to become about the baby.
Right.
But you don't want to forget your marriage because you're actually being that example to your son or daughter about a husband and wife and a father and a mother. So that's kind of the advice I threw out there. Mm-hmm. I had all kinds of advice, but I said, you know what? If there's anything that I wish I would have known sooner, which remember my marriage, because really that's the foundation. Like Jeannie said, it wasn't communicated about the flowers.
Right.
But she was able to come up with her own idea at 5 or 6 years old.
That's what that meant.
About what the flowers meant.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's very interesting.
I'm just happy that that was the advice. I was proud of that advice. Proud of myself, I guess, for the advice I gave because, it's like, baby-proof the house or any number of things that you could give. So with that said, we are going another level deeper into rewriting the script. And this is what we're calling becoming a soft place to land. And this is one of the most beneficial things. It was game changer for me, understanding that I could actually become that safe place for my wife, that soft place to land for her, and that it would really just kind of open it would open a new place of connection for mine and Jeannie's relationship.
Right.
It would strengthen it. So what I'm going to do is hand it over to Coach Rita, and she's going to kind of line us out, and then we will hit the ground running.
All righty. Excited to share with you guys this episode. It's that soft place to land because I think everybody wants that place where when they're vulnerable or they've had a great day or they've screwed up, whatever may be happening in, your life, you want to be able to have that place, that soft place to land.
Yeah.
And it is really something that you do create. And how you create it is ultimately through connection. And I've said this from the beginning, every relationship is different. Every relationship is unique because we all are so different in so many ways. So, but when it comes to connection and when it comes to having a soft place to land, everybody wants that.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to have connection. Connection should be above anything, above communication, above finances, above your children, above work, above church, above family. All of that, you have to work towards that connection, because that's when things start coming in, is when you start losing that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really an intimacy. It's allowing that person, that your spouse, you're allowing that person to see into you. And sometimes when we don't create that soft place, it's really hard to open yourself up to be intimate with somebody if you think that they're going to judge you, if you think that they're going to make fun of you, if you think that they're going to see less of you.
Mm-hmm.
Where you can create that connection with that person to say, I'm safe.
Yeah.
Like, I accept you. No matter in your good, in your bad, in your greatest days and your lowest days, I accept you no matter what, because everybody wants that place
Mm-hmm.
to land, especially when you screw up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean screw up in your marriage, but just screw up in life, or just something bad happen. You just want to know that you have a safe place that you can go and you can be intimate and you can share, and that be okay.
Yeah.
So in connection, it's the ability to have, or the ability to be a safe place around you. It's to be free. It's to be valued. It's to be appreciated. It's to be known. It's to process life out loud, and you can handle the truth of who your spouse is, or whoever that person is that you're wanting that intimacy, you're wanting that connection. That is the soft place to land. Mm-hmm. That is saying, I have the ability to accept you for you. And I'm not going to be moved or wavered by things that I might see in your life. What happens is that most people can't handle someone else's stuff, like, especially if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
Like, we can't handle someone else's, like, mistakes, or like they screwed up, like, because we think we're all perfect, and we all don't do that. So there's such a judgment there that plays out in that. So be that bigger person that you can say, I know my spouse isn't perfect, and they're not intentionally doing these things to make themselves look bad. You know, life happens, things happen, we respond, we make decisions, we make choices, and sometimes they're not always that the right choice.
Yeah.
So it's just having that ability to create that space of acceptance. I think that's probably the most important. It's really having that conversation with your spouse on, what does this look like? Because like I said, everybody's different. What does this safe space look like to you? Like, how does that, what do you feel, or what do you need to feel safe?
Yeah.
You know, it's having those conversations on what it looks like. How does that feel? Can you explain that to me? Mm-hmm. And I think you just have to go with it in the aspect of letting go of any expectations that you might have, and you take your spouse for face value.
Yeah.
And you embrace that for who they are, what they are. So creating a soft place to land is always interesting, how every couple is different.
Yeah.
It is very interesting, the things you have to work through, the things you have to negotiate, the things that you have to open yourself up to, and be willing to open yourself up to, and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, or I'm putting this on the table. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's where the momentum starts to start connecting, to start being intimate, to having those conversations of your fears, of your dreams, of whatever it is that, or wherever it is that that conversation is going to go.
Yeah.
But it is asking yourself, what does that look like? Like creating a soft place to land for you and Jeannie, what does that look like? What did you guys have to do to navigate, to get to that place where you felt comfortable enough that you could come as you are and say, this is me?
Yeah.
And are you willing to accept this? Are you willing to work with me?
Mm-hmm.
Are you willing to see those things in my life that you can see that I need to work on, and you're still going to accept me, and you're still going to be able to create this soft place for me in those times that I might not hit it.
Yeah, and I think, just listening to, all this minty, fresh goodness that you're putting out for us, that's kind of giving us that effervescence of change, if you will, or the potential for change. One thing that is just like a vital place to being a soft place to land, and I know Jenny and I will get into this, is you have absolutely got to build a level of trust with your spouse. And through building that trust, you both have to make it known that I'm not going to have an ulterior motive when you're coming to me because you need me to be a safe place to land, or a soft place to land, whatever I was trying to say there. It really, if you don't intentionally build a foundation of trust, where you'll let your past sins go, if you will, and say, okay, we're going to start here. We're going to start from this place, and we're going to develop this level of trust with each other, so that I know that you won't be vying for your own way when it comes to my experience here, and I can truly come to you and feel safe that you're going to accept whatever this situation is. And I can feel confident that your love and affection for me is not going to change. It's not going to change who you think I am, because you're going to see me in my crappiest moments in life.
We're not worried about the other person keeping score.
Yes.
That's what it boils
what
down
a
to.
great way to put it.
Being able to trust that what I'm about to tell you, you're not going to sit here and put in your back of your file bank and go, okay, the next time you piss me off, I'm going to pull this one out and I'm going to go after you with it because I know this was something that would hurt you. I think for us, the biggest thing we struggled with in the beginning was I don't trust easy, period. I come from a place where trust is earned and you work very hard to earn it. My home was not horrible, but it was not great either. And the things that I learned just in watching was not to trust anybody. Everybody's out for their own.
Yeah.
And in the home I grew up in, when you had a weakness, everybody exploited it.
Yeah.
So when we came to this place, I think it was kind of similar for you too. You trust people too easily.
That's what I was just going to say. It's
But-
funny that your thing is like, trust no one, and my thing was like, trust everyone.
Yeah, and that was to your detriment in the beginning because there were some people that you were trusting when we started dating that I am your BS meter because I called people on it and they did not like me. They didn't want us married. They didn't want him dating me. They wanted me nowhere near him because I was quick to say, you're taking advantage of him. This is not okay with me. And they would get PO'd because who am I to say what's okay with him when he said it's okay? It's like, well, yeah, you're his friend. He would never, ever say something wrong or be rude to a friend. I, however, have absolutely no connection to you, but I love him. So I'm going to tell you flat out, this doesn't work for me. And it didn't go really well. We lost a lot of people in the process, but they're people we didn't need. They weren't seeing you for who you were. They were seeing you for what you could give.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we differed. I was looking at people for what they're taking from you because I don't trust. So I was watching things with a fine eye going, I don't like you, and I don't like you, and I don't like you. But when it came time for him and I to sit down and go, this is what's happening. And for him to actually open his eyes and see what was going on, I was like, whoa, he had no clue. Where on the flip side, I don't trust, he does. So when people come into our life and it's like, Jeannie, this person's helping us. I think the first person I ever actually totally opened up to was you. And that was what, 12 years into our marriage? 10 years?
Yeah. It's a long way.
But it took us being able to sit down and say, okay, I have to feel safe. In every aspect, I have to feel like no matter what we're up against, you're going to protect me over everything else. And in that came, personal attacks that we went through, and me feeling like I had to protect myself in a situation I shouldn't have to, and you finally having to step in and say, no, this is not okay with me. My wife is upset. My wife is hurt.
Yeah.
This is not happening anymore. And cutting that loss. For me, that was a huge moment, because now, although you've always said I'm your number one, that was the action that put me in number one. I'm no longer on the back burner no matter what else is going on. That right there put me at the top of the list.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
That opened us up for me being able to say, okay, so you're not going to take it and attack me with it. You're not going to, you're not going to throw it at me. Like I said, it was hard for me with what we had to do. I mean, we had to go down to things as simple as, I can remember the argument. I don't remember what it was. I just remember you telling me I'm putting my foot down. And this was early on in the marriage. Wrong person. You do not give me orders and tell me I cannot do something. All hell will break loose and you will hear my wrath. That's just the way it is. I instantly went to, you're just like my dad. This isn't a marriage. You're just like my dad. And I shut down. I owe you nothing from this point on. If that's the way I'm going to be treated, then forget it. Because you're not going to let me be me. You're going to control me. Right. So we had to come down to things as simple as, you can't use words like that with me. If it's something that you're adamant, this has to happen, there is no changing, we need to word it in a way of, like, now he'll tell me, this is detrimental. This has to happen. Rather than telling me I can't do something, it's like, no, I need you to understand where I'm coming from. It's simple as verbiage. His biggest thing is the F-bomb and glitch. Anytime he would tell me something, well, the glitch is, and he would get so infuriated with me because that instantly tells him she's not going to go for it. No matter what I say, it's over. She's not listening. And I had to reprogram that. That took a long time. But I was able to do it. And then, like you said earlier, if I drop an F-bomb in conversation, he knows I've reached my limit for the day because it's not something I would normally do with him. But it was coming up with everything from, what are our non-negotiables? One of ours is date night. I have to have date night. We have 8 kids. We have autism. We have your busy work schedule. You work out of town, so you're gone 12, 14, 15 hours a day. I need a reset. But even in that, okay, what is date night? It was not just going to the movies. But then it also came down to, I don't want to plan date night. You're going to spend time with me. I'm planning everybody's dinner, everybody's schoolwork, all the running around, all the groceries, all these other things. I just need you to take control of this for me. Just control that for me. And now he does. He'll call me and say, okay, we get a babysitter on Tuesdays. Tuesdays is our night. We have a set babysitter. And the only question I'll ever get asked is, do you want to go to this place or this place? You have 2 choices. Which restaurant do we want to go to? Okay, cool. I can do that. But it came down to such small things. Even for him to be able to tell me like what he wanted. And it gets to the point where if you don't set these things, when it comes down to meeting the needs, you're screwed. We all go back to the books. Our physical need was met. I was doing my deed. We were fine with everything as far as I was concerned. His need was met because he had the physical. But then when he came to talk to me and told me we're not connected, you're basically zoning out. You're reading your books. You're doing your own thing. And I'm sitting right here and we're not connecting at all. He's like, but yours is quality time. Then it clicked. Had he not brought that to me, I would have I'm meeting his need. So I'll deal with mine later. But I had to give him that opportunity and the permission to say, we have a problem. And not fly off the handle and scream at him because he's calling me out on my crap. One thing I will say, though, Quincy and I have maybe 3 to 5 people at the most that we give permission to speak to us, into us, or about our marriage, or to call us on something and go, hey, something's going on here. If a person doesn't have that permission, it's not acceptable to discuss it with me. And both of us will cut them off. Thanks for your input, but this is not your place. And that was something we had to establish. Because in the beginning of our marriage, my mom thought she needed to be in the middle of everything. And I didn't know any better. She's my mom. Oh, bad decision. Bad decision. But now seeing a lot of what we've gone through in our marriage is what I learned from her. Oy, reality check. So I don't know. What did we have to change more so for you?
Well, so what I wanted to do, because I'm just this guy, is I wanted to throw out like some bullet points, if you will, just going over. I mean, it can be overwhelming thinking of all the change that we've gone through.
Oh, this has been 10 years in the making, though.
You know, it can be overwhelming, but, you know, when you kind of boil it down to these are the steps that we had to kind of go through and develop them, it actually, I think, helped me understand that it was quite a process. It's not an overnight thing. It's quite a process to build, but you can really appreciate how far that you've come. I mean, I cannot imagine before all this coaching going and telling Jeannie, when I'm around you, I feel alone. I can't imagine going and saying that to you with where we were before, because it may have been sarcasm, it may have been, you know, an explosion of emotions or an F-bomb or whatever it is. And it's it's a scary thing to go and say something hard to your spouse, you know, because that's the person that sees you in a way that nobody else does. But it was through looking, you know, what did we actually do? Because I don't think you take time in the moment to really appreciate what you're going through. Right. But it's only after you kind of reflect and, you know, these episodes come up, it's like, okay, so what did we do? What do we rely on now, since we've rewritten the script on how we have decided to interact with one another? So I put some things down here. And, you know, I kind of want to lead off with, you have to decide to build trust. Trust is hard to build. It's easy to break. And then it's even harder to rebuild. So that's the cycle. And maybe you're right in the middle of broken trust. And it's going to take you some time to reestablish what trust is. It may take you some action. You may have to put in extra work if you're the person who has broken trust, to show that you are actually going to show up and be a person of your word. And it's hard to rebuild it. And once you have it reestablished, it's got to be a non-negotiable for it not to be broken again. You know, so it's like you got to start, the foundation has got to be trust. And then you've got to decide that, you know, we decided we wanted to understand each other better. And then we had to develop a list, and thanks to you coaching us, there has got to be a list of non-negotiables. Where there was only one non-negotiable we had when our marriage started, and it was a garbage one.
Divorce is not an option. That was the only non-negotiable we had when we started. Divorce is not an option.
And it's like, if that's your only non-negotiable, that means anything is fair game, and I'm just going to stick with you because I can't see myself getting divorced no matter how horrible we are to each other if we're not willing to change or whatever it is. And it's got to be something bigger than that. So we developed, you know, our non-negotiables, I'm sure, are different than yours and Bill's. Absolutely. Because like you said, everybody's unique. So then you have to develop a language between yourself. What's okay to say? What's not okay to say? When I say something, this is what I mean, and this is how you're taking it.
Yeah, so you have to question.
We have to learn how to interpret one another's language. And I'm not saying, you know, that we're speaking in codes, but I can say something and mean red, and she can hear something and hear green.
But we've established now, though, I think, because you can tell mostly by my face, I think at this point, my face gives me away all the time. If you say something, you can usually tell right off the bat, and so can I now, where, okay, wait, I said this and your face looks like something is not being heard the way I meant it. So what did you hear me say? And, it's basically we gave each other permission to question.
Yes.
What do you mean exactly? And if that means going back to all the way to layman's terms, I don't care if you have to dumb it down for me. I'm not getting this. And if you want me to get it, I need you to go as far dumb as you can and tell me what it can be as simple as, going over our finances. We have a very different way of doing them. I can look at something and be like, yeah, okay, we can pay it next month. Not a big deal. He cannot. So it's having to go back and forth. We had a conversation using the groceries. I made the mistake of saying, we're more than 3/4 of the way through the budget. Yeah, I know, we're good. Don't worry about it. Well, why are we so far through the budget? The kids are eating more. This has changed, this and that. But I didn't tell him I know how much money is left. I have it planned out. We're not going to go over budget. That's what he needed to hear, but that's not what I said. And he was over here fuming because he thought I didn't care and then I wasn't paying attention. Once we made that connection after we had a little blowout for a second, dust settled and it was like, okay, this is what I should have said. This is what I should have led off with. But if we hadn't given each other permission to do that, this would have been an all-out fight. Just from simply not saying something properly for him to understand that we're on the same page. And it's so ridiculous, but those are the things that usually come back to bite us because you don't stop to say, you have permission to question me.
Yeah, right. And I mean, when maybe you have a 3-person family, when you're navigating a grocery budget for 10 people, it can get kind of hairy. So, it's almost like you looked at my notes. Can you see my notes from over here? Because the next one was be intentional to understand each other and don't take it personal. The next one is choose to embrace your feelings towards that other person and their feelings towards you. Just embrace it. Don't try to change it. Just choose to embrace it. Accept it.
Acknowledge it. That's a huge one.
Respect each other in your differences. Just because, it's like we've said before, it's like, no, just because we disagree doesn't mean you're against me. We're two different people. Even in our marriage, we're two different people. So we don't have to fight about, you're not against me just because we're different or we think different. And then, becoming a soft place to land. And then being confident that your spouse can and will accept you in the good, the bad, and the ugly, like we said before. And then, like Jeannie said, we had to give each other permission. We had to give each other permission because it's not just like a known. You have to give each other permission to go there. If you don't, then you already have non-negotiables in your marriage. What they are is they're silent and they're competing. And if you have silent, competing non-negotiables, you're a snowflake that's hitting the top of the mountain, and it's going to start rolling. And all it does is gain momentum. It gains more force. And when it comes crashing down at the bottom, it has power to destroy.
Yep.
And that is not where you want to find yourself. And there's something that has so much freedom at bringing your worst moment to your spouse and them not judging you, not being sarcastic, but them just accepting you and allowing you to say, I screwed up, and they're like, you did? But then turning around and saying, but you know what? That's not who you are. Right. So that being a soft place to land is like you can go there and just put yourself out without judgment or ridicule or sarcasm or whatever those things are that are hard points in your marriage, and you just allow that person to pour their heart out to you, and you accept them for where they are, but then you remind them, hey, it was a moment in time. This is who you are, and I don't want you to forget that. And because if you, as a guy, I don't know, as a guy, I just kind of didn't want to admit that I needed a soft place to land, because I just wanted to power through things.
You and me both.
But all that did was that created a separation between Jeannie and I, because I just couldn't authentically be myself. And it was kind of a frightening moment, if you will, to put some things out there, and I didn't know how they were going to be received. But when she was like, yeah, okay, I was like, whoa, wow, that, I don't know, I can't really put into words right now. I'm a little tongue-tied by it, but there was a deeper sense of intimacy between us. And I me as a guy, the first time, you hear intimacy, you think sex. But there's something that goes far beyond that, as a place of connection and being fulfilled and respecting the person that you love and being intimate with them and them embracing you, whether it's in your best moment or your worst moment, and then them coming alongside you and building you up.
Well, you look at your medical situation over the last 2 years. Had we not developed this, I don't think you would have been as accepting to me caring for you as much as I did, and the stuff that you had to go through, because that was embarrassing for you. It was tough for you.
Yeah.
And out of anybody else, it was like, okay, well, your mom's a nurse. We have a friend who's a nurse. We have people we can call on if we need to. But ultimately, that's my responsibility. You're my husband. I should be taking care of you. And it was very hard for you to be in that position and just say, okay, you know what, I'm just going to let you do this. Because that was one of those things that he came out of the hospital thinking, I'm just going to take care of myself. They're going to teach me how to do this, and I'm going to be able to do it, and everything will be great because you've got the kids and you've got all this other stuff. I'll be able to do it. And he couldn't. Yeah. And there were certain things, I mean, in that particular situation, our normal intimacy was not going to be happening for several months. But in taking care of him and being able to talk through his emotions and what he was dealing with, because this was hard. This was very hard for him. I think that kind of put us in a different level of intimacy, because you were embarrassed, but you got over the embarrassment and got into the mode of, this is my wife. She just wants to take care of me.
Yeah. And
when it, because if the roles were reversed, there's no question. He would shoo everybody out and he would be taking care of me. That's just who he is. Mm-hmm. So I think it just, having those conversations before all of the crap happened, mm-hmm. I think is what helped us get there. Because before, when you had hernia surgeries and stuff, I'm fine, babe, I got it. You freaking ripped the thing open because you were so bent on getting up and moving and taking care of yourself and doing what you needed to do, that it finally took coming to a place of going, no, I can't afford for you to be out of work. I can't afford for you to be home all the time. I love having you here. But in order for you to be the person you want to be, I need you to listen to the doctor and let me do this.
Yeah, and I don't really know how to articulate this properly, but I'm going to try. And you're the expert here, so maybe you can make sense of it. But I no longer have a concern that if I show my wife my heart in what I think is my moment of weakness, I'm no less of a hero to her then, because I showed her a low point or a weak point. Because it's saying that I'm willing to go to this place of vulnerability so that you're my number one. You're my most favorite person in the whole world. And that's what being a soft place to land is all about. Like the true meaning of it. So, Coach Rita, you got a couple things for us so we can wrap this episode up?
I do. Jeannie and I just needed to switch spots a little. That is so so true what you just said and what you just shared. You all can't see, but it's an emotional thing that Quincy just had there. Um, and you feel it, you know it. Like when you get into those vulnerable moments, I believe, especially as a man. Now, okay, I'm not a man, so y'all could correct me if I'm wrong. When you go to those moments of being so vulnerable, it's like you don't know how that person is going to handle you.
Yeah.
And I remember telling Jeannie, if Quincy's going to open himself up and he's going to let it all out and he's going to be vulnerable, you need to cherish that. In those moments is what you need to cherish, because I think a lot of times that's where men have tried to open up to their wives, to their spouses, and they've gotten so beaten down that they have just really built this wall around their heart not to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
not to ever be vulnerable, because to be vulnerable means that someone's going to destroy you or use that against you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes it happens as you grow up in different circumstances and in different ways that might have been ripped apart from you. And you live your life with a wall around your heart. And it takes a bit to recreate and to start removing those bricks that you have placed there.
Those barriers.
Yeah, so that's where I just find that it's really important as a wife, when your husband goes to that vulnerable place, cherish it, honor it, guard it, protect it, do whatever you can, because if you don't respect that, the minute that you do it again, or you try to have him be intimate with you, or to have that connection, it's not going to be there, because you destroyed that. And you just need to honor it. If anything, you need to honor it. So I just think it's you had a comment, Jeannie?
One of the things that you talked to me about was understanding that if he's willing to be vulnerable with me, that shows me how much he values me.
Right.
And that I needed to understand, and this goes for both sides, because if I didn't value his relationship, I wouldn't share my most intimate things with him.
Right.
I wouldn't share the ugly stuff with him. But you helped me to understand, if he's willing to go that distance with me, then that's how much he values me. That's how important I am to him, that he's
Right.
willing to pour it out. And if I'm willing to not throw it at him and just be there, then that's the more value I'm going to have
Exactly.
as the relationship goes.
The next time around, and what you're building upon. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it definitely creates that soft place to land. So listeners, you have to determine what that looks like for you. What makes you feel safe? What are the things that you need from your spouse in order for you to feel safe? If you are going to be vulnerable, if you want to really have that intimate connection, those are those building blocks that you need. You need to communicate what that looks like. And what actions does your spouse need to take in order to create that safe place?
Yeah.
Because like you said, Quincy, and I truly believe this, everybody's different. What you might need as a man is totally different than what another man standing in this room may need.
That's
but
right.
You have to have the ability to be able to communicate that to your spouse so that you can work on it together.
Well, that's very well said. Did you have a couple of notes or exercises for us that we needed to do, or did you say them and I just wasn't paying attention?
I said them.
Thank you for saying them. I was doing something I should have done before the show, which is verifying our Twitter and Facebook. And wrote them down, but I didn't.
There was one thing I was gonna just kind of put out there is really just having you guys go back and start with episode 14. because that's where we really started this whole segment of these episodes. And once you start listening to it, go back. If you just started listening to us today, go back to episode 14 and start there, and then you'll see the progression of what it is that we're talking about, because it is a foundation that you build on.
Yep.
And it starts to recognize where it is that you came from, what it
Yes.
is that you've been taught, and you're redoing all these things. So just go back and start there and start listening from there, and then this episode will make sense to what it is that we're trying to lay here. So.
Very true. Very true. And I would say make sure that you save those episodes so that you can go back to them, because that, you're going to start at 14, you're going to go through the next few, and then you're going to have to, kind of cycle back to pick up on some of the strategies that we've gone through, because they kind of rely on one another from episode to episode. So, hey, check us out there, fella. Why don't you get in touch with us through the email? Check out our new email. It's coach@manvsmarriagepodcast.com. So that's coach@manvsmarriage.com. And connect with us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/MVSM podcast. Those are the two places that you'll find best that you can connect with us, and you can kind of join this community of men who just want to be the most authentic version of their self that they can be, and then they can be the best version of themselves and impact their marriage and all of their relationships, really. So until the next episode, good night now.